Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Steck. I'm the host of tonight's Artburst Live segment. We love these live events where we have the opportunity to hear from inspiring creatives. So tonight we're featuring artists Kim Roberts, Annie Salness, and Michele Messenger. And it's just a delight to have you here. We're only, just a day over 3 weeks away from the opening of the show. And things are starting to get really exciting. The artists are starting to share teasers of their work. We're starting to share teasers. And so you have the opportunity to see some of the amazing collections that are going to be revealed on November 14th at 10 a.m. on artburststudios.com. And that's 10 a.m. Mountain Time. So you want to make sure that you know how that translates to your time zone. Kim, Annie, and Michele will be featuring their latest collections during the upcoming Fancy That show. Again, that opens online at artburststudios.com on November 14th at 10 a.m. So let's hear their stories. So our first artist tonight is Kim Roberts.
Hi.
Hello, Kim.
Hi.
I'm so glad you're here with us tonight. Can you tell everybody about yourself?
Sure. Yeah, it's really exciting to be part of this program. I've really enjoyed making a series for this program. And, I come at the art world from a little bit of a back door because my training is very much in the mental health field and meditation and yoga. And that was my, sort of past life career. And while I would paint while I was traveling, at some point I started doing it a little bit more seriously. And I remember the first time that people started to recognize me as an artist was when I was living in South India studying Ashtanga yoga. And I would paint in the afternoons because we didn't have anything, no practice in the afternoon. And I lined my house in South India with clothespins and, like a laundry line, and I hung my watercolors. And so when people would come over to visit, I had like an impromptu gallery in my house. So that was my first sort of inkling that this was something that was going to stick around. Eventually, I moved back to Colorado, and one of those sort of midlife transitions ended up with me living in Southern Colorado. I'm part-time in Crestone, which is about 4 hours south of Denver in the beautiful high alpine valley of the San Luis Valley. And it's a population, I think 100 in this town of Crestone. And one of those people was a teacher of encaustic art, which is something that I had been hearing about. I had actually been amassing materials for many years because I was fascinated by this practice, but I didn't know what to do with any of it. And then suddenly, out of 100 people in this town, there's one guy that teaches it. So, of course, I took the course. He, at the end of this 3 hour workshop, looked at me and said, ah, I'm even going to get emotional. I've shared this story. Every time I share it, I get emotional because he's like, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you do, but if I were you, I would stop everything and just make art. And I just bawled and I was like, I know I should. And so I did. And yeah, that's pretty much that was right as I was about to turn 50. And so that ended up really changing the course of my life. And I still work with encaustic a bit. None of the pieces for this show are encaustic. I subsequently moved to Denver to get involved in the art world here and discovered oil painting, which I had always been afraid of. And I would just want to say to anyone who is afraid of oil, don't be afraid because it is so much easier, I find, to work with than anything else I've worked with. It's really a joy. And so I primarily work with that now. And when I moved to Denver, I really just started working with that and and working with the subject matter that inspires me so much, which is the mountains. I basically paint mountains.
Yes. Well, Colorado is a good place to be if you love mountains and
Yeah.
Crestone as well. Well, let me ask you, when you were in India, when you started painting with watercolors, What was your subject matter then?
A lot of that was mountains too. There are not so many mountains in South India. There are big hills, but I had a friend who would with a big where we would go for like long trips on the weekends, and I would bring my little watercolor pad, and we'd go to the hill stations, and so I painted a lot of those. They were very bad watercolor paintings, a lot of palm trees. A lot of South Indian houses, which are all very colorful, and life is lived outdoors there. And so basically, kind of street life, cows, people on the streets, that kind of thing. Yeah. And then I also spent a lot of time in not so much northern India, but Nepal and Bhutan. And so I really did spend time in the mountains there in the Himalaya. And and again, I would practice painting those with my little, just my tiny little watercolor pad. There's something for me that is about absorbing the atmosphere, that there's a piece before you put paint to paper or canvas that is the absorption part. And there's some part of me now that recognizes that I have absorbed mountain energy, and I can paint them without looking at them, and it doesn't seem to matter. And it's because I have like breathed them in. That's how I feel. I don't know if I explained that well, but they've become such a strong part of me that it's a part of the practice of painting at this point.
I love that. Well, and you talked about the instructor. I think sometimes as artists, we struggle with the should we and are we good enough? And to have somebody say that to you, did you feel like it gave you permission?
Yes, but even more than that, God, it it gets me every time. It was more than permission. It was like I knew I had permission, but nobody, it was almost like it had been taken away from me when I was younger. My parents were, even though my grandmother was a pastel portrait person, my parents were not at all interested in me going to art school. It would never even, I didn't even dare.
Yeah.
Um, but there was some relief that was more than a permission. It was like retrieving something that had been taken away, that was so grounded in my truth. I knew it.
That's really beautiful. It's amazing how much other artists support all of us when we hit those
Yeah.
those different points, and that it really is this major sense of community that inspires us and when we struggle and so on. But that's amazing that that artist was in that community. And I know
Yeah.
Crestone is a creative community anyway. So
Hmm.
it's a really beautiful place if people ever come to Colorado and want to visit.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just had our annual open studio tour last weekend, which is always such a fun event. People come from around the region, and yeah, it's a really nice excuse to visit if you ever need an excuse to visit Crestone.
Well, I definitely need to add that to my calendar for next year. Now, you talked a little bit about yoga and meditation and what a big part of your life that was. How does meditation inform your process today?
Yeah. Well, I touched on it earlier a little bit in that it's like having absorbed the mountain energy. But, at this point, I really did a deep dive in meditation. When I went to graduate school, I went to at the time, it was the only accredited Buddhist affiliated university in the United States. And so, while we were learning psychology, we were also asked to keep a meditation practice. And then I got obsessed with the yoga. And really, I mean, my life was Ashtanga yoga. It's all I did. And when you take such a deep dive into the contemplative practices like that, it changes your worldview. It changes the way you look at things. And, I had a lot of healing to do, which is why I did that program and why I was so drawn to those practices because, I had a lot of baggage from, an unruly teenage, years and all the things. And, so the reason I took that deep dive, it was because it was the only thing that was really that I had found that really helped me manage emotions that had been sort of left over from all the childhood traumas that we all have to various degrees. And so it's not just a matter of applying meditation to one aspect of your life after a certain point. It is the way you view your life. And so these days, rather than um, seeing things from the old perspective where I might have seen things in black and white or good and bad, I see things more as a spectrum and I'm more able to develop a relationship with what I'm looking at or who I'm listening to in such a way that it's not, I hope, as much about me anymore. And it's more about being present to what is arising in the moment. And then I can respond appropriately in a way that shines light on, but also it's my intention to bring out the best in a circumstance, and in a situation. So, I'm not one of these artists that wants to paint the ugly bits of the fire scarred mountainside. I respect that, and there's a real time and a need for that. But I want to spread, it's going to sound hokey, but I want to spread peace and
Yeah.
I want to spread joy and I want to spread love for this beautiful planet filled with all these natural elements.
And we'd need both. I mean, we need all of that. And I guess I was going to ask you a question about the role that nature plays. You talked a lot about the mountains and it's so interesting that I can see the flow in the mountains. Your mountains, there's
Hmm.
something about them that has that movement. And can you talk a little bit about that and your process?
Yeah. Again, I think it starts before paint goes or, drawing ink goes to paper. And for me, Uh, I have this kind of preconception that I must have picked up in the Himalayas. So there, in the religious traditions of the Himalaya, mountains are gods and goddesses. They are the spirits, and there are certain mountains that are so sacred that you can't climb them. They respect them too much, and you have to, ask the mountain for permission to climb it. Other ones. And so for me, there is this sense of nature being spirit. It's in the Bön tradition, which is the pre-Buddhist Tibetan tradition. It's like a shamanistic. It's an animistic religion, and where every element, not even just of nature, but like even your door and your lamp and your whatever, they're animated by this spirit. And so when I am approaching a landscape, like I don't know if it's always conscious, but there's a part of me that's just like, yeah, we're in this together, mountain, like we're doing this thing. It's like it's not just me and mountain. It's like, yeah, we're here, we're doing it. And the as far as the technique of like the flowing mountain business, I don't even, I really don't I don't know where that came from. It just came. And I guess I can just share that I traveled to Norway, again, a mountain range. Mountains, I traveled to Norway and it was early in my painting career. And I was a little all over the map with my color and I needed to rein it in. And so a mentor suggested that while I was traveling, I choose one color. And I could bring, different media, but choose one color instead of doing like the whole watercolor thing. And so I chose indigo. And I got to Norway, and they have this word that I can't remember, but it essentially means overwhelmed by beauty. And I got it. And I was overwhelmed by beauty. And I was so glad I only had one color because it was overwhelming. And you have to be able to like harness that. And I just took my little ink dropper bottle cap and I used that as my uh, applicator. And
Oh,
somehow I just loved the effect and it stuck. And that's how I make my drawings. And they just flow. So it's really out of my control often. So there.
yeah, I love that. How many times do we all finish a piece and go, where did that come from? How did
Mm.
that happen? And it's always one of those moments where I kind of get goosebumps and go, this is so much bigger than me putting paint on a canvas. It's just beautiful. So if people want to see teasers of your work, they'll be able to find them where?
Yeah, so I have a website, kimrobertsart.com, Instagram, kimrobertsart, and yeah, I that's the teasers are going to come out more on Instagram. I don't think I've put them up on my website yet.
Art lovers can go to the Meet the Artist page too. Go to the show page and you'll see all of the artists listed. And if you go to Kim's page, all of those links will be there. Now, Kim, you don't have any pieces from the show with you tonight, but can you show us a sampling of your work?
Yeah, so these drawings that I was talking about with the ink, this is really how they present, and they're very simple, and they come in either black or white frames, and they're just made with acrylic ink. This one is super simple. It doesn't even have any wash. So, very often I'll put a wash on them, but I have, just a few others that can give a sense of what they look like with a wash.
Oh,
So
beautiful.
yeah, there you
And
go.
then some of the pieces that you kind of build to a crescendo almost in many ways in your collection. So you have some pieces, some of the oil pieces as well, correct?
Yeah, yes, I have up to I think 16 by 40 is my largest piece for this show. So I do have some statement pieces and a bunch of stuff in between. I also did a couple of new things this time where I put the monochrome ink on wood panel on top of gold gesso, which was super exciting and fun. So yeah, those are, and then they're varnished. And so those yeah, I was really happy how those turned out as well.
Well, your collection is beautiful. We always get an opportunity, of course, behind the scenes to take a look. And all of the artists have completed their collections and they're busy kind of writing the stories and putting all of the details of the artwork into the website so that it will be ready for, all of the art lovers when the show goes live.
Mhm.
So, is there anything else that you would like art lovers to know?
Well, I thought of just a very simple thing. If anyone is in Denver, I am doing one more First Friday before the year ends on South Pearl Street on November 1st. And so that would be an opportunity just to say hello and, maybe look at some of the drawings and see if you can touch them and see if it's something that you like. Um, and I guess I would like to also just sort of wrap up with the comment that you made about how, it's so important for us to support each other. And, one of the things that I have found after this long arc of, teaching and counseling and then coming back to art, I've come to this place where I am realizing that offering that, like a passing along that permission slip to potential artists or wannabe artists is part of my program now too. And I actually host a Facebook group that does that. And so that's available and people can reach out to me to discover that as well. Because if you need a permission slip to make art, I got one for you.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I remember when I received my permission slip and it made all of the difference in the world. Well, Kim, your work is just stunning, and I really can't wait for everybody to get a glimpse of it. I think they're going to feel that connection between you and mountains or nature. It's just such a I mean, powerful. There's something really powerful about it. So thank you for joining us tonight, and we'll look forward to seeing you here in 3 weeks.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, for those of you just joining us, I'm your host, Jennifer Steck, and tonight we get to meet three of the artists in our upcoming Fancy That show. I don't know about all of you, but I always get so excited to hear about what inspires people and their journey. And I think many of us as artists, early on, you just don't think art is a career that can actually happen. And so the beauty is sharing the message to everybody that, we're all artists in our own right. Whether we love to cook or we love to, decorate our houses or we love to work on our lawns. So yeah, no permission slips necessary here. But anyway, so it's always thrilling to hear from everybody. So don't forget to subscribe on the Artburst website. You will have a 24-hour advance preview of all the artwork in the show. There's over 200 original pieces of art. You're sure to find something that is perfect for your space, from the smaller pieces all the way up to the statement pieces, as Kim was talking about. And the beauty is that when you go in and you look at these pieces, if you hover over them, it's going to magnify them. So you'll get to see all of these beautiful details in there. So now let's get back to meeting our artists. So up next is another one of our brilliant artists, and that is Annie Salness. Hi, Annie.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh,
Thank
we're
you.
so glad you're here. This is your first show with us.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it's such an honor to have you. So how about if we start with you telling us about yourself?
Okay, I live in Portland, Oregon, but I am originally from Southern California, Anaheim, near Disneyland, and I have many wonderful memories of watching the Disneyland fireworks before bedtime.
Wow.
As a kid, I was interested in both art and sports. I loved drawing, painting, and building things. And I was in charge of creating our Halloween costumes.
Oh,
I also participated in flag football, track, basketball, volleyball, and soccer. After high school, I studied illustration in college. I married my husband, who is a high school teacher and coach, and I coached high school boys football, boys volleyball, and girls volleyball with him. I put aside my art for 15 years to coach sports and to homeschool my four wonderful kids.
oh.
Then I put my kids into regular school part-time, and I was so excited because I was ready to start my art business. And then I had a stroke
Mm.
that paralyzed the right side of my body, which was my painting hand. So I had to switch hands. But I figured that the information was in my head, so I just needed to develop a new tool, which was my left hand.
I love how the art still needed to speak through you,
Yes, it
and you
is.
found a way to make that happen.
Yes, because I was an athlete and I wasn't, that was taken away from me. The art really played a big role.
Can you talk about how you ended up, what the process was as far as learning different mediums and how you ended up to working in mixed media and acrylics today?
Well, I tried to work in oil, but I found it was really hard to clean brushes, so I stopped that. I enjoy working with and connecting with people.
Mhm.
So last year, I created a series about kitchen tools and recipes. So I reached out to friends and colleagues, and I asked them to share their favorite kitchen tools, recipes, and stories.
Ah.
And I really enjoy taking a break from my own life and experiencing someone else's.
And what inspired you to paint what you paint overall?
It just depends on what I'm feeling. Like I get a idea, and then I don't want to rely on my own ideas. I like to reach out.
Yes. Well, photography plays a role.
hmm
Um, what kind of role does that play, and how does it turn into a painting?
For the show, I did a series of still life. Like you can see it right here. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. I take a bunch of pictures and then I crop them on the computer for, and then I print them in black and white. Do you see that?
Yes.
Black or white, because I really check the values. This is a value finder or something, so I check the values on that and then check it with my painting.
So value is really the lights and darks and the
Right,
shades in between
right.
for
This is a
those of you
value
picturing.
finder. It goes from light to dark.
Oh,
Yeah. And then let's see. I'm reading as I'm doing this because I'm kind of slow.
you're doing great.
And then I turn it upside down. That's why I like to take pictures too. I turn it upside down because when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at the bag and apple. So I turn it upside down, and that now I'm just looking at the shapes. I
Ah,
don't see bag and apple.
yeah.
And also, I see the lot of reflections here that I wouldn't see if it was right side up.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. I've heard other artists say that that's part of their technique as well.
Yeah,
That you get so engaged when the picture's right side up that you miss things.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Can you show us that painting close?
Well, yeah.
Oh
That,
my goodness.
that okay?
Yes, it's perfect. It's perfect. There's something about your work for me, all of our work speaks to different people in different ways. We all come to it from a different perspective, but there's something that lunch bag reminds me of growing up. That lunch
Yes.
bag reminds me of when my son was young and when I was
Yeah.
packing lunches and
Yep.
things. It's beautiful, almost everyday things.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I love how you translate that beauty across. Do you have any other pieces to show us?
Yeah. Here's another lunch bag. Let's see.
Oh, you make the everyday things stunning.
Well, thank you.
I especially love that.
I have a challenge coming up with the background. I can paint the objects fine, but the background I have a challenge with. So then I have extended the line and I just paint one little section at a time, and then it just kind of breaks the background into pieces.
Oh, I love that. I
Oh,
noticed that in your work that you have some lines and some extra
mhm.
marks in there. I love your strokes. You
Thank
know,
you.
the fact that you can see the different strokes. What is it that you love about that kind of painting?
Well, before my stroke, I studied about biomedical illustration, and so everything was very precise.
Mhm.
And I was trying to get away from that, and I was looking at broader um, paint brushes, and I was like trying to make my objects a square
Mhm.
instead of round. But since my stroke, it would be hard for me to do precise realism, so it worked out perfect.
Oh, yeah, yes, it did. And what a journey it has been for you.
Yes, yes.
Yes, and so as you've moved forward in this, you are also using these paintings for other things. So didn't you just have an open studio last weekend?
Yeah, just that's why everything's so nice and neat because it's left over.
Uh,
Yeah,
so Annie and I spoke earlier, and I think you have a calendar coming out, right?
yeah, yeah,
That's really exciting. Did I
yeah,
did I see somewhere where you include recipes in some?
yeah. That was last year. I had the colleagues give me their favorite kitchen tool and recipe, and then I was inspired by whatever the kitchen tool was or the recipes. But then I would include the recipes on the calendar. I have one right there if you want to see it.
Oh, of course, we want to see.
And here's the calendar.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, yes. Oh
So
my goodness. So Annie, how many paintings do you have for this show?
I have 12.
So Annie has a full 12 paintings, and I think again, I guess I say some of the same things. I have to come up with some different words here. Um, but the collections are so unique and so different, and every artist has an amazing voice in this show. And so you'll be able to really see how different people approach their art and how they express themselves through the beauty of their work. So, Annie, what else would you like to let us know about?
Well, I like to end on this. Although I used to be an athlete and a coach, the stroke has limited my physical abilities. However, I am grateful for my artistic skills, which allows me to teach and coach others. I'm grateful that my stroke and my art has allowed me to connect with people that I wouldn't have connected with before. I don't even know the lasting impact the stroke has made on my life, my art, my family, and others, but I am grateful. And I would also like to thank all of you guys for being so helpful, gracious, and cheery. Like you've been smiling for 45 minutes just now.
I'm happy. I love these.
Throughout this process. And I'd also like to thank David Castle, who is in this art show, for introducing me to Artburst Studios.
Well, we are just as grateful that you're here, Annie.
Thank
And
you.
we can't wait until the curtains open. It's just going to be magnificent. So your body of work is very special.
Thank
And
you.
um, yeah, I can't wait. I just can't wait for the show to open. So thank you for joining us for the show. And thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a joy.
Thank you. Bye.
There's many things and many ways that you can support artists. Of course, by art, that helps us be able to continue to do what we do. But the other ways that you can help are pass the word. All of us know people who love art, who would like to meet artists. So share the good news, share the video when it comes out. Follow these artists on social media, on their social media accounts. Subscribe on their websites. Many of them put out regular newsletters, and so you can follow their journey so that you'll know, number one, when the Artburst show is happening and when to be there, so that you'll have the first opportunity to purchase your favorite pieces. But you'll also be able to follow their journey as it continues, whether it's for an open studio, whether it's because they teach. Many of these artists teach, and if you're looking for that permission slip, as Kim said, you'll be able to find a little bit of challenge in getting out there and giving it a shot, because you never know quite what's going to happen. So, last but absolutely not least, we are excited to have Michele Messenger with us this evening. Now, Michele is one of our veteran Artburst artists. She's been with us since Artburst first started. And, it's always exciting to see you back, Michele.
Aw, thank you. I was very honored to be in Artburst 1 and triply honored to be asked again and again to participate. This is such a fantastic show. So thanks.
Yeah, it is exciting. And as I said, the artists have such unique styles, unique voices, and unique mediums. So before we get into the kind of nitty gritty of that kind of stuff, can you tell us about yourself, Michele?
Absolutely. I am a graphic designer. And in my little Artburst spotlight that was just released while Kim was talking, I mentioned that every day I have to design based on some other creative parameters, something that I'm not in charge of. I still obviously put my flavor on everything, but it isn't my product. It isn't my logo and all that. So when it came time to keep doing more creative things, and I found Encaustic, which we'll dig into, it was revelatory that I get to make what I like. And this is going to sound kind of snotty, but I don't care if anybody else doesn't like it, because all day long I'm making stuff for other people. Here in my teeny tiny studio, I get to make stuff that I like, and luckily other people like it too, so yay.
I guess I don't consider that snooty. I consider that
It's,
I mean,
it's freeing. It's it allows me to have an authentic voice.
yes.
Where when I'm designing a logo, for instance, it's a very transactional business relationship, and I'm giving them everything, but it's not my product, not my logo. So this is me.
Yes. So a question I've had for you is, you are creative every day, every hour. How do you not have all the creativity? I don't know the right word, but ooze out of you.
Go away.
Yeah, so that you still have the energy to create after that.
I think they feed each other. I absolutely don't think one is a vampire from the other one. I think while I like making art that I really like, sometimes I would rather have strict rules, and that would be a design client. So the two feed each other quite well, I think. So I that's never been a problem, except in that nightmare way. I don't have any more good ideas. They're all gone.
Well, and I suppose in both areas you learn stuff that
Yes.
inspires
Yeah, absolutely. It might be a color palette. It might be, for this client, these two colors end up being the right way to go for that business. But I really liked playing with that, and maybe I'll experiment in here with that. So it's fantastic.
Yes.
I feel very lucky to have the life I have.
Now, I've heard a little bit about your story, but can you tell everybody how you got to Encaustics and how you got to today?
I discovered Encaustic at an art show. There was another artist. This was in Denver, where I am, and there was another artist who was showing, and her artwork was fantastic and just beautiful. And she let me touch it, which is, to my way of thinking, one of the very best things about Encaustic, that you get to touch it, and at least my artwork you do. And we got to talking, and she suggested I take a class with her. And I did, and it just changed everything. It changed. I'd never taken an art. I dabbled in an art class here and there, but this was the one that spoke to me. I think it fits really well with how I approach design. It fits really well with, I cannot paint, I cannot draw, but I can do this. And I think that's because it's very similar to some of the things that I do every day anyway. This artist was Victoria Eubanks, and after I took a bunch of classes, she asked me to be her assistant when she taught at Art Students League of Denver. And I did that for 5 years until the pandemic hit. So, and there was at one point towards the very beginning, she said, okay, you need to be selling art. Well, okay, whatever she said I would do. And now you need to be doing this. Okie dokie. So she was my mentor, my guide, and my, seeing eye dog. She was perfect.
When you say that, I think of that permission slip.
Yeah, exactly. I've never thought that I needed a permission slip, but it turns out, Kim, you're right. I exactly needed a shove out of the nest.
Oh, that's a good way to put it. Shove out of the nest. So you have some tools and you have some things that you can show us. So we want to see.
I do. One of the things that I think is kind of fascinating is, while you have a tube of paint, this is my tube of paint. It's a cake of encaustic wax and pigment. And so this is the exact same thing as what you would use in a tube. But in order for me to work with this, it has to be, and I'm not going to move my iPad, but it has to be melted. So I have a griddle over here, and I have little tins with melted wax in them. Pretend this is melted. And then when I melt them, I can use them. One of the greatest things is you never have to clean out a brush. So Annie, I kind of suggest you look into encaustic. You never once have to clean out a brush, which is fantastic. But you paint a layer on wood, and then you fuse that with a heat gun or a torch, which I don't have one close by, and that wax sort of soaks into the wood. And then you do another layer and fuse it, and another layer and fuse it, and another layer. So it's a continual fuse layer, fuse layer, fuse layer, until it starts telling you where you're going to go. But then tools that I think are really fun this is a leather, I don't know what this is used for, but it is a leather tool. It's like the sewing tool that you would have used to mark darts. This is more aggressive, and it's metal, and it won't clog up so easily. This is a pottery loop tool, a pottery rib tool. I don't know what this is, but boy, does it make good marks. So lots of pottery tools, lots of kitchen tools that obviously never go back to the kitchen. Lots of things, anything that will make a mark in soft wax is fair game for encaustic.
I love that. Now, your work is always infused with really joyful shapes and color. How do your ideas develop?
I have no idea. I don't know. It might be something like, I don't have a cat in this show, but I just started thinking not too long ago how funny it would be if I did a really close up of a cat and all you saw were the ears and the nose and sleepy eyes And I love that cat, and I'm not done making that cat because it's so funny. So I don't know where that came from. I just thought it was be a funny thing. It's a very graphic way to approach painting. So
Yes, your pieces are very graphic. Do you
yes,
ever draw ideas as they come, or do you make notes as they come so you don't forget them?
I'm a big note maker. I am not a sketch person, but I might doodle an idea just so I remember. I recently did a long skinny bunny way low on a board, and I wanted to draw that to make sure that fit. But for the most part, I'm notes. Before I go to the studio, I'll often make notes of what I need to accomplish that day from a business perspective, but also make notes of what I want to attempt that day in terms of an idea or a motif. And then a lot of times I will just list the colors I want to melt, because the gazillions of colors I have available to me after I mix a little of this and a little of that, and it's too many. So I need to rein it in. And sometimes I don't even have my colors. My melted colors are behind me and I'm working this way. So I'm not even exposing my eyeballs to the zillions of colors that I have accessible. I'm only looking at the colors that are here on my griddle. So, rein it in and keep it. It's kind of like Kim's one color vacation. I think that's a brilliant idea in terms of it's not a limitation. It's a box that you want to play in. So play in that box while you have it.
Yeah, I love that. Now, so you have the little containers that the wax gets melted in. How many of those containers do you have? You must have
That's another thing. I don't have a lot of them. I also teach, and I keep migrating a lot of my tins to my teaching supplies. So I see a dozen in front of me.
Oh, that's not bad. I was thinking, well, gee, do you need a little tin for every color?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can also melt directly on the griddle, which I do a lot. If I just need a little note, a little kitty cat nose, I just need a little bit of pink. I don't need to melt a whole bunch of that. And then I have bigger tins for when I need to make a lot of a color. So
yeah, that's fascinating. One of these days I need to take one of the classes because I played with it just a little bit, but never really focused in. And I think sometimes taking classes in other mediums really helps inform and move you forward in your favorite mediums as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much to learn about encaustic. There's a lot, and you didn't learn about it in school. You did learn about acrylics and oils and pastels in school. You did not learn about encaustics in school, even though it's way older than any of that other media.
Well, now let me ask you a question. Would you have trusted us at our age with hot griddles and wax? I'm not sure I trusted myself.
I would, because I teach teenagers at Art Students League of Denver. I teach a summer camp with teenagers. And the first thought was, no. And the second thought was, well, and they don't know that a torch exists, but they certainly know that a heat gun exists, and they're amazing, fantastic. So yes, I would have probably trusted us.
I love that. So your pieces are very graphic in nature, and I really love that about them. So do you have a couple pieces to show us? And it's not going to be cats. That's going to have to be a future show.
Yeah, cats are not in this one. Because cats aren't fancy. So
I don't know. They think they are.
They think, well, we know better. So here is one of my pieces. This is another motif that I do a lot. I'm gonna put this very close and see if you can see. It's kind of you can kind of see some of the marks that I made in the wax. And so after I've painted all my layers, and I cut stencils for a lot of my shapes, fill those in. After I do all of that stuff, I'll make a lot of marks, and then I do an oil wash over the whole thing. Every encaustic artist does this, oil wash over the whole thing, and that oil stays in the marks I made, in the little noogies of the wax, in the edges of the stencils. So it really brings a piece together and adds another element. Sometimes it's just jewelry that it's adding. Other times it is the design. It is the long legs of a sheep, or whiskers of a cat. So sometimes it's critical to the design. Other times it's just jewelry. And this is one of the jewelry times. So that's one piece. And then I decided when I first started making art for this show called Fancy That, I decided, well, I'm going to do some fancy chickens. And I don't know that these chickens are fancy, but they do think they are, like the cat. So this is, I have 3 chickens in the show. One is fancy chicken. The other is another fancy chicken. And then the other is fanciest chicken, fancier chicken. And I don't know which one this is, but it's a chicken with eggs. and this whole chicken thing came from, I saw that my grandmother's house in Peoria, Illinois was listed on Zillow for sale. I mentioned it to my 2 sisters. We talked about, do you remember all the rooster that grandma had, like the sugar canister, the tea canister, the flour canister, a clock, all these motifs in the kitchen had a rooster on it. And my 2 sisters didn't remember that rooster. And I thought, well, I'm going to start making roosters that I call Lucille after my grandma. And so that's turned into my fancy chickens.
I love your fancy chickens.
Thank you.
So just a reminder to everybody, when the show is live and you click on a piece of art that you love, it will take you to a page that has all of the measurements in it, whether it's ready to hang, but the photos will be there and you'll be able to, I think I mentioned it earlier when we were talking tonight, but you'll be able to move your cursor over and it will magnify the images. So you'll be able to see up close and personal all of those beautiful marks.
And that's such a great handy thing that Artburst Studios provides, because we're asking a lot of people to buy art that they can't touch or see in person. So it's really a great, great feature. So again, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I use it all the time because it's like, ooh, look at that. And what am I seeing there?
Ooh.
Yeah, so every artist tonight, you'll definitely want to go in and do that with their work so that you can see those fine details and yeah, it's just beautiful when you see it. So, any final thoughts for us, Michele?
Not only as a veteran Artburst Studios artist, this is such a fun show. I know I remember the first one kind of was a little crashy at the very beginning, but even that was kind of fun, at least on our end, because maybe not on your end, but at our end. It is fun. The frenzy on day one is really interesting and fun and encouraging and supportive. There's nothing, for all the buyers that are out there, there's nothing more thrilling than us getting an email saying, congratulations, another piece sold. So that's fantastic. So I'm excited to have this come up in 3 weeks. I can hardly wait. I'm not ready, but I will be by then. So yay.
I know we can't wait either. It's, I mean, when you think about it, this process starts, it started months ago. All of these artists really started thinking through their collections and beginning this process. And it's finally going to come to fruition. And it is exciting. And
it's a little Christmas-like 4 times a year.
Yes. Well, and I will say there's enough of a selection here that if you're looking for a special gift for somebody, this is a great place to find something that, something about them and about the things that they love. And
Correct.
but if you're like me, you're going to go in and say, oh, my sister would love that. And I buy it. And then I have to go buy her something else because I get it and go, no, I think it should stay here. So just a warning that could happen. Or maybe you could buy a couple pieces, and that way you can
Right.
decide which one's your favorite, and
Right.
it's all going to be fantastic. So your family member will love whichever one you gift them. So, well, thank you for joining us tonight, Michele. It's good to see you.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you.
Back.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you all for spending the evening with us. It's just a joy to bring everybody together. And I always learn more when we get together to do this. It's just nice to know a little bit more of the artist stories. I collect art too, and most artists do. And every piece of art I have has a story, something about the artist, and it just adds to the richness of the art in my house when I know a little bit more about the artists. So you can meet more of our artists. So we have one more Artburst Live before the show, and it's going to be on November 2nd at 9 a.m. Mountain Time. And so that's a Saturday morning for us. And Lisbeth Court will be here, Deanna Strachan Wilson, and Laura Tryon Jennings. They'll be joining us for the final Artburst Live interviews. We do also have Instagram Lives, and so we'll be meeting with David Castle tomorrow at noon Denver time, just for 15 minutes on Instagram. So if you need one of those little lunch teaser things, David will be meeting with us tomorrow. So you'll love to see him and his work as well. So we have 19 incredible artists joining us for the Fancy That show. They've created over 200 pieces of original art of all shapes and sizes. And so Fancy That, our online art show, will open on artburststudios.com on November 14th at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. If you create your account in advance, then you'll be ready because you will have already entered your shipping address and stuff. So you'll be ready when the curtains go live, or when the curtains rise, I guess, on the virtual art show. You can subscribe to get a 24-hour advance preview of all the art so that you can make your list of priority pieces. Or if you're not a joiner, we get that too. You know, we all get a lot of email in our inbox. And so you can just show up. So just show up at 10 a.m. Mountain Time on November 14th. But the show ends on November 16th at 4 p.m. Mountain Time. So this show is fast and furious. You'll be able to get in, purchase your favorite piece, and head out to take care of whatever business you need to take care of. And then, of course, you'll want to come back a few times because you might have some additional pieces that you want. So we look forward to seeing you there. And before I close tonight, I just want to say we hope that you go out and vote. It's just one of those things where it's time for everybody's voice to be heard. So thank you for joining us tonight. We'll see you at the show.